And today we're going to talk a little bit and allow you to see how to make carrot cake oatmeal bake. Maureen shared a little bit at the beginning on those slides about University of Idaho, and I just really want to share with those that are joining us this afternoon that really U of I does an amazing job of providing practical education that you can trust in that. They work in lots of different areas.
Joey, let's go ahead and pause while I launch the first poll.
You bet in that.
Sure. I apologize. Yep. If the participants today could go ahead and respond to the poll question, that will help us out in tracking participation in this series. Just scroll through it, and then Joey will explain to us all about UI Extension and the programs we provide statewide.
Be sure on the poll to scroll down because there's 4 questions, and so you might be just viewing that first question. So if you haven't already, be sure to do that. As you're answering those questions, I'm going to continue just to share a little bit about all that U of I offers. So I'm guessing you know, maybe if you're joining us, you know a little bit about You and I Together. And today you're going to hear about nutrition, health, and wellness and that. But they also offer programming in community development and small farms and forestry and natural resources, lots of different areas. I think everyone has completed the poll.
Yes, go ahead, Joey.
Let me see if I can get it to advance. There, let's try again. All right. Going to hear a little bit about University of Idaho and their work in water.
University of Idaho Extension is working to ensure a safe and stable supply of water for all Idahoans. From water quality monitoring to watershed ecosystems, irrigation, water management, and hydrology, UI Extension is helping to protect our water for the future.
And then I wanted to share just a little bit about myself. I am an extension educator. I'm based in Payette County, and I have an amazing job. I get to work with youth, I get to work with adults, and if you can't tell by some of these pictures, I really love working with food and food safety. So I do a little bit of food preservation education, some 4-H youth development, and then particular classes that meet the needs of my community. I want to really encourage you, if any of you go home and try this recipe, take some pictures and post them on your social media accounts, or if you don't have social media, send them to Serene Greenway. Her email's at the bottom of this slide, and we would love to have those pictures and share those. So as I mentioned, today we are going to do carrot cake oatmeal bake, and hopefully all of you have received the recipe. I was copied on the email that was sent out. But before we jump into the actual hands-on part of that recipe, I want to talk to you a little bit about breakfast and a little bit about nutrition. So what are some of the reasons you think kids skip breakfast? So you can jot those in the chat if you want to, or I believe you can unmute and share that. Would you add any more to what list you're already seeing? I think about kids getting up and rushing around, early start times. One of my nephews, the school bus picks him up at 6:45 in the morning, and he is less than a mile from the school in that, and it takes him about an hour and 15 minutes for that bus route. He's the first one on the bus. So oftentimes we'll skip breakfast. But what about adults as well? Some of the main items that are shared when asked that question, adults say, I'm just not hungry. I really don't like to eat early in the morning. I'm super busy. I just can't get out of the house if I try and take time to eat. And some share that they do it because they think that they want to lose weight, and that's a way to reduce their calories throughout the day. However, we know, and you've probably heard, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. There's lots of breakfast benefits. Really, it helps to improve memory, concentration, and problem-solving ability. Is it any wonder that schools started offering breakfast? It's an important step to having great learning happening. We get lots of nutrition when we eat breakfast. We can get protein and fiber and whole grains and vitamins and minerals in that. Now, I mentioned that many adults think that by skipping breakfast that they will eat less calories. And research has shown us that individuals who skip breakfast often end up eating more calories, and particularly later in the day. So really not recommended to skip that breakfast. And then it really is, if you think about the word breakfast, break your fast, it starts your metabolisms and gives you energy when you have breakfast in the mornings. So, carrot cake, oatmeal bake. What are great sources of nutrients that you would find in carrots? So put it in the chat, type in the chat, or I'll give you a second if you would like to unmute. You might have some additional ones that maybe I don't have up here. So carrots provide antioxidants, vitamin K, potassium, fiber, and beta carotene. And one of the things that beta carotene helps us with is to have good vision, to help our vision.
So Joey, would you consider a protein shake breakfast?
It depends on what is all in that protein shake. I would consider that. Many protein shakes are made with yogurt in that and have fruit in them. So yeah, it depends on what's in that shake.
All right.
So why is fiber important? So this oatmeal bake is packed with fiber in that. Fiber helps to maintain a great digestive system, a healthy digestive system. It helps us move that food through our intestines, and that's really important. We don't want food sitting around for a long time in our digestive system. Fiber helps to promote healthy bowel movements. I love talking about fiber with kids because they can get laughing pretty hard when you're talking about poop and that, but it's pretty important to your health. You want to have lots of bulk. That fiber will absorb water in and move that waste out of your body. Another thing fiber does is help you to feel full. I've got a couple pictures up here. One is of rolled oats and the other one is berries. The rolled oats are soluble fiber, and that just means that your body can use that fiber. It absorbs water. It kind of looks gelatinous. You know, if you had your oatmeal sitting out and for a little while, it kind of become gelatinous, kind of thick in that. Soluble fiber helps us with our cholesterol, is really a great source of fiber. Insoluble fiber is fiber that we can't break down, and that's what bulks up our stools and helps us to go to the bathroom. So really, I just want to remind all of our participants today to feed your family a rainbow. Get lots of colors and lots of variety in your meal. The Choose My Plate is pretty important to give just a basic visual of what your plate should look like throughout the day. All right, so now's our chance to see how to make a carrot cake oatmeal bake in that. So if any of you, I see some great hands waving up there. So if any of you are doing it with me, now's the time. You can see that I have back behind me lots of stuff. I am going to, let me see. Give me just a second. I'm going to share screens for my little camera to hopefully help you to see a little bit better. All right. Are you?
It looks great, Joey.
Pardon?
Right there looks great.
Excellent. So our recipe starts us off by having an 8x8 dish. And today I chose a glass dish. And it said to use a light oil spray and prepare your dish. So usually I would do this over the sink and that any extra spray would go right in the sink. But today I'm just going to do a light spray. I'm going to set that aside. Then our directions have us putting all the wet ingredients together. And so if you think about what are our wet ingredients, so on the list, the first thing it's going to have us prep is our carrots that we're going to use. So I have done, make sure you guys can see that, some prep on carrots. I have started peeling my carrots. And so I just have a couple to show you. Set that aside. The peels of the carrots, what are some things you can do with that? Do any of you have chickens at home? Chickens would love to have the peels off those carrots. Or maybe you have a compost pile that you can put those peels in.
Great. And looks like Lacey and Harley, I believe, have theirs ready to go. Their carrots grated. Good job.
Excellent. They're a little bit ahead of me. They're on it. So this is, I chose not to use a food processor grater just because I thought the noise would be a little bit too loud for this. So I'm using a standard grater. And you can see the big holes on this side and the little holes on this side. So I found that I actually like the carrots. Let me do it backwards with my left hand. I like the carrots that are a little bit finer, so I'm using those little holes. And you want to be careful, kitchen safety, and make sure you don't get your fingers too close to that grater, and so they can cut your fingers. Do just a little bit more. Remember, a lot of our orange vegetables are high in beta carotene, which is a great antioxidant, a great nutrient that we need. So, I'm going to set aside my grater. Now, I did do some of the larger sizes, so you could just see that. Like I said, I prefer the smaller one. So I have already measured out half a cup. We need 3/4 of a cup. So this is, make sure. Using a dry measuring cup. And now we have 3/4 of a cup of carrots, shredded carrots. So I'm going to add that to my bowl. Then our next ingredient is our peanut butter. And I recommend that you have a spatula, and this recipe calls for 1/4 cup. You're just going to measure that out in another dry measuring cup. Want to get it clear to the top, and sometimes depending on how you packed it, you might have some air bubbles, so you want to push that down just a little bit. And once you have 1/4 cup, you use your spatula or your scraper, some people call it scraper, and get as much of that peanut butter out as you can. Then our recipe calls for 2 cups of milk, and today I'm using 2% milk. You could use a low-fat milk or even a whole milk. I'm using a liquid measuring cup. And with a liquid measuring cup, often you'll want to get down eye level and make sure that you're right at that 1 cup. And add our 2nd cup. We're going to keep our area very clean. And then we're going to add our egg. And if, when breaking your egg, you might want to do it over another bowl and drop that in just in case you get some shells in it. So I'm going to start carefully mixing just a little bit.
Joey, while you're mixing there, almond butter is okay to use?
Ask that again, Maureen.
Almond butter is okay?
Olive butter. It is. You don't have to use, I would use probably a nut butter. You don't have to use peanut butter. But if you have allergies, you could use another type of fat, and olive butter would work, and it would still be a healthy fat. All right, our last wet ingredient is our applesauce. And our applesauce is the only sugar we're adding to this recipe. Dump that right in. So now we have all of our wet ingredients. I'm just going to mix that together. And because my milk was good and cold, it's going to take just a little bit to get my peanut butter mixed up in there. It's got fat in it, and that cold temperature makes it just a little bit harder to mix. I'm going to set this aside for just a minute. And now we're going to put together in a separate bowl our dry ingredients. And those include 2 1/4 cups of rolled oats. Push that off, so that's 1. Two, quarter. Set that aside. Our next dry ingredient is going to be our cinnamon. Now this recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Do it over this. Which the couple of times that I made this recipe, and it might be because my cinnamon was about a year old, it wasn't fresh cinnamon, I would have added just a little bit more cinnamon. So the first time you make it, if it's not enough for you, then the next time you might consider adding a little more cinnamon. Then we have baking soda in our baking powder. That is our leavening ingredient. That's the ingredient that will help our product have a little bit of lift or rise. And that's also 1 teaspoon. And our last dry ingredient is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I never measure my salt over the bowl, because I always usually have just a little bit spilled. All right, we have our dry ingredients. Our next set of directions, I'm just going to mix up our dry ingredients just a little bit, is to take our wet ingredients and add it to our dry ingredients. You're going to mix that. You want to make sure and get all those oats coated. And then your directions will tell you to set this aside for 10 minutes. And the reason you're setting it aside for 10 minutes is to allow some of those oats to absorb that milk in that. So we're going to pretend that it's been 10 minutes and I've got my baking dish. And you can tell when the oats have absorbed some of that liquid. But then I'm going to pour this in my baking dish. Oh, for you that are bakers, what's the first thing I should have done? Well, first 2 things I should have done. And put in the chat.
Oh, Emma says to wash your hands, Joey.
Yes, I washed them right before we started, but really I probably touched a lot of things, and then I found myself touching my nose a little bit, so that probably wasn't.
And then Lacey, I think it's Lacey and Harley, put in to turn your oven on and have it ready to go.
Excellent. Yes. The first thing we do is want to preheat our oven, right? And this recipe has us preheating the oven to 350 degrees. And then we're going to stick this in the oven after it's been sitting for 10 minutes. And we're going to bake it for 35 to 40 minutes. If you would like to, I'm going to wait just a little bit. But if you'd like to, these are some walnuts. You could sprinkle walnuts on top. If you have any nut allergies, you don't need to do that. But last year, actually 2 years ago, and you and I together, I did a session on pumpkin seeds. thought, oh, pumpkin seeds would be wonderful on the top of this. So you can also add that. So if we waited our 35 to 45 minutes, our carrot cake oatmeal bake would come out looking something like this. I purposely picked a metal pan so that you could see, you could use a glass pan or a metal pan. A glass pan takes just a little bit longer in the oven than a metal pan. But these directions in an 8x8 pan have you cutting them into 9 pieces, I believe. Now, so
Diana shared that pecans would also be great and that it looks delicious.
oh, excellent.
So Joey, it looks like you're cutting your cake into sections of 3 or 1/3 first, right?
Yes. And last week we learned a little bit of math and dividing paper and art media into thirds as well.
Yeah.
So art, baking, cooking, all great. I also, so even though your directions say to use a 8x8 pan, I thought I would try making some muffins. So I made some muffins as well. Neither one of those have any nuts or berries on top of this. This product, I think, has great flavor in that, but it's not super sweet. So if you read the title, Carrot Cake Oatmeal Bake, you might think it's a really sweet product, but remember, we only added applesauce as our sweetener in that, so be prepared for that. It's fairly dense product, heavy. The first time I had one, I liked it, but it stayed with me. I didn't get hungry in the later in the morning like I usually do.